Hey guys, what's going on? Luke Burrows here, and in today's video, I sit down and chat with Joel from Model Millennials as we discuss how to figure out what you want to do in your life. This, guys, was taken from a recent Instagram live that we done, so I hope you enjoy. Instagram, what's going on? I hope you are well and are all good. Tonight, guys, going live with Model Millennials. Joel is going to be joining me. He's just here. Give him a little wave. Let's make this thing happen. Spring John, and we're going to be talking about how to figure out what you want to do in your life. There we go. Joel, can you hear me?
I can. Hey, how's it going?
Awesome. I'm good. How are you?
Doing amazing, thanks.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Pleasure to be talking to you again today, man, and doing this. Just give some waves to people, presents to join us, some shout outs and everything. Awesome. So yeah, really looking forward to what we're going to be talking about today, how to figure out what to do in your life. And I know it's something that you're really passionate about, and have and kind of include your story includes kind of a part of what we're going to be talking about as well, and very much the same here. So as we'll kind of both our followers will jump on, some people might not know who I am, and some people might not know who you are. So maybe if we just give a quick intro into both of us and then dive straight into the content.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, first off, right before this call, I had a chance to set up this contraption for me to use my Gorilla Pod for this IG Live. So I'm just hoping and praying that it stays intact and I MacGyvered this properly. But a bit about who I am. So full-time at the moment, I work as a growth marketer in a SaaS company. So for those who aren't familiar with what growth marketing is, it's essentially digital marketing, but with a very specific philosophy. So that's what I do by day. And by night, I am the founder of Model Millennials. And it's all about helping out with young adults in their 20s and 30s to help them navigate through all aspects of life, whether it's how to find out your career path, like we're going to talk about today, or it's leadership, entrepreneurship, a lot of different topics that I cover, really helping people to thrive and navigate as a young adult.
That's awesome. So we've got Roxy joining us. How are you doing? Robert joining us. Home Biz Tax Coach joining us. Awesome, guys. So yes, for those who are maybe coming over from Joel's side and don't know who I am, so obviously my name is Luke, founder of Grow Together. That is a personal growth education platform and community to help people to accomplish what we believe is the ultimate goal, a better version of ourselves, right? So in whatever way that looks like, we believe that like deep down, we're all trying to accomplish that goal. And so much like Joel, I actually, our kind of DNA is for people in their 20s and in their 30s. I mean, we've attracted people of kind of all ages and backgrounds, and one of our core values is kind of to accept kind of everyone, but yeah, really in our DNA is to help those who are in their 20s and 30s to really grow and and accomplish that ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, me and Joel can relate on so many different levels, which is amazing. And so we've done a podcast, well, two podcasts, didn't we? We done the Grow Together podcast. I came on your podcast as well. I'm now doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's been a great time, and I hope I can keep that roller coaster going.
Absolutely. So where did you want to kind of start with tonight's topic? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think a good place to start is me maybe just sharing a bit about why I'm so passionate about the subject, if that's all right with you.
Yeah. And
so, yeah.
And just so Roxy just says, what's the subject of today's chat? So yeah, if you're just joining us before Joel kind of dives into it, it's how to figure out what you want to do in your life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Really looking forward to it. So Joel, sorry, I interrupted.
Not at all. So you're absolutely correct. So figuring out what you want to do in your life, Guys, this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart because just like a lot of you as millennials, I struggled with my path for a long time. I don't know if you guys relate to this, but for a very long time, I felt like everywhere I went in life, I kept getting this one question, which is, what do you do? I feel like at work events when people don't know me, at family events all the time. I come from an Asian background. I can't tell you the amount of aunts and uncles that would ask me that question with a slight hint of judgment as they ask. Whether it's friends parties, you're just constantly getting bombarded with that question. And guys, I can tell you for a very long time, I felt like I would answer that with an air of uncertainty. I almost felt like I was unsure every time I answered it. And I would give this answer where I really want to almost impress the other person, but it came out almost half-hearted a lot of times. And I think part of the reason why is because I would memorize the script in my head for what I wanted to say, but it didn't quite come out in an authentic way. And in contrast, I would see these people where I would ask them, hey, what do you do for a living? And their eyes would light up. And every time they spoke with this undying passion. And they just spoke with this air of confidence. And I just wanted more than anything to be that. So for a long time, I really just put my head down and really studied the subject of figuring out what it was that I wanted to do. I spoke about this a little bit on your podcast, Luke, on how it started for me in my career path. I was in elementary school and I picked up this book. The book was called No Coins, Please. And nobody really knows about the book, but in a short nutshell, the Spark Notes, there was this one young kid. He was in elementary school and he had went on this field trip with a bunch of his friends. Throughout the field trip, they went across the USA. They went to big cities like New York, Las Vegas, Detroit. And as they went to each city, this young kid was just very ambitious. So what he would do is he'd actually leave the tour group, whether they were at a museum or at a tour site. And this young kid would go off and start his own venture on the streets. They were really silly ventures. He would do things like sell pet rocks, sell attack jelly was what he called it. It was really just Jello. And it was silly, but at the end of the field trip, he ended up accumulating some wealth. And for me, it wasn't really about the money. It was about the fact that this young kid was an underdog and he found a way to figure out what he wanted to do and he was passionate and found that out. As I went throughout school, I ended up going into business because, partly because that book inspired me and multiple other people. But in business, when I took school and university, I was at a crossroads because at the time, I felt like business was very focused on profits, but I couldn't find the purpose behind business. So I kind of felt like I could either, sell out my soul, kind of sign on the dotted line with the devil and make money, or B is I could go into a nonprofit and choose purpose over profits. So I kind of struggled with that for a long time, lifestyle design versus making a difference. And it wasn't until I had a chance to meet someone where he talked about the concept of social entrepreneurship, which essentially marries the two, making a difference and making a dollar. And that same individual actually gave me this incredible framework that helped me to this day on knowing exactly what I want to do. And that's really what I want to be able to pass off to other people.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I can definitely relate to so much of kind of like our stories in that because I was like exactly the same. Just thinking back to when I was in school, like I wanted to be a football player, so a soccer player, but I was never good enough, and so or never like really like tried, like 110% type thing. It was more like a hobby type thing because I
Mm-hmm.
had this like amazing kind of dream, and then like through school and that didn't really know what I wanted to do. And like you say, so many people with its friends or family or like your friend's parents were like, so what do you do, especially when you go more into kind of like 17, 18, 19, 20, it's like, oh, Luke, I haven't seen you for 5 years. Like, what do you do now? It's like, and so I definitely can relate to that. And I think a lot of younger people can as well, and that's obviously why, I found it great together and you're doing awesome work with what you're doing. So, yeah, in terms of how we've got people on now, in terms of how if they can also relate to me and relate to you,
Mhm.
what would be some steps that you would recommend that people take to start to figure out what they want, what they want to do with their life ultimately? A couple of points that just go back to the podcast that we did that really stand out for me was when you were speaking about how that clarity on for you that really helped, and we spoke about like what does it look like, what does it feel like, and kind of going through all
Yeah.
of this to really associate with what it is like you want to accomplish with your life. So I can just kind of remember that part of the podcast that was really powerful.
Mhm.
So yeah, where do you think the starting point would be for for someone if they are watching this right now and they're like, okay, I'm kind of in this quarantine thing, like where do I go type of thing?
Yeah, wow, that's an amazing question. And first off, I'm definitely kin to you, where I'm a soccer player as well, and wasn't quite good enough to get to the premier
Okay.
level. Huge gap, actually. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But to answer your question, in terms of steps, I definitely have some very practical steps for you guys, and I wish I had this. In high school, I don't know about you, but I was in high school and I would get these aptitude tests from counselors, and you fill them out. It come back with 3 or 4 different vocations, and you kind of take a look. And at the time, I remember just looking down this list and thinking, well, which one makes the most, or which one
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
like I kind of enjoy.
So here,
Yeah,
just before you dive in, so here
please.
we had a website you would go on to. So not it's not an actual test, it's this site. And you you fill out these questions like you should be this, and it's like
Yeah,
I've never even heard of that before, so it just
right.
reminded me of that. But yeah, sorry, continue.
No, it's all good. And one point that you made earlier on that I think is so crucial is understanding exactly what it feels like. And I think that that word is really key, what it feels like. Because until you know what it feels like, you don't really have a litmus test as to whether you know if it's your life path. Because I can tell you guys, there was a huge contrast. What it doesn't feel like, this is how I felt when I was in my sales role in the past, where I was making a decent income, but it wasn't quite my path. I remember every single Sunday night just having this sinking feeling. You know what I mean? Where
I do,
I'm like,
man.
oh, I don't want to go to work Monday. But in contrast, what it feels like, you want to be able to wake up every single day and just be excited about going to work. Your Mondays should feel like Fridays, as cliche as that sounds. You want to be able to feel like you love and can work on your craft endlessly. You want to be able to know that you're good at what you do. If you're constantly getting affirmations that you're competent in your work, that's a huge and great sign. You don't ever want to feel like you're compromising your values in work. And really, you want your work to be able to resonate with you in terms of the lifestyle that you get to create.
Yeah. So just on the values point, I think just come to me a challenge that most people face, and I think I did. I don't think people are like consciously aware of their values. I think like deep down we kind of are, but if I just think back to when I was working my 9 to 5 and can relate to everything you just said, like, oh my God, I used to hate Sunday nights, but it actually started
Yeah.
on like Friday when I left at midday because we used to finish early.
Mm,
And soon as that point comes, you're like excited for the weekend, but then no, oh shit, it's only like 2.5
right.
days to Monday comes again. So I can definitely relate to that. But
Mm-hmm.
like I don't even think like people are consciously aware of their values, deep down I think they are, but I think because we get so wrapped up in kind of day-to-day life, when I sat down and read the book Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins and kind of
Mm-hmm.
really in there kind of highlighted like life values, core beliefs, etc. And kind of I suppose woke me up to that fact, and I kind of actually
Yeah.
went through the process of like actually what are my life values, and then started to become more consciously aware of them. That's when things start to shift and change. So I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
would go along with that. That actually people, I think deep down they kind of know the things that they want in their life and the things that they value, but on a
Mm-hmm.
more kind of conscious level because they just get
Yeah.
so wrapped up in life, and it's not taught at school. I remember a point, within the podcast episode, you were saying that at school, we we get taught the annual rainforest in Brazil, but you never got taught on how to manage your money or do
Right.
taxes or anything. So yeah, I'm just kind of interested in in your thoughts, I suppose, over that.
Yeah, amen to that, bro. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to jump into now, which is getting practical. Because you talked about how we have somewhat of an internal compass, but how can we consciously then, put it down on paper or have it external where you know exactly what's next. So let's get practical. And let me share with you guys a framework that worked extremely well for me. I heard this first during a seminar and it resonated with me immediately. So if you think about your life path, it really needs these four characteristics. All right, so if you imagine a Venn diagram, so if you think back in school, Venn diagram, you have a circle here, circle here, circle here, circle here. And right in the middle is a little sweet spot. And the four circles, what the characteristics are, number one is you love what you do. So you absolutely enjoy and you have a deep passion for what you do. Number two is you're good at what you do. So you're competent at your craft. Number three is you can generate the return you want in what you do. All right, so you can generate the lifestyle you want. And I'll talk a bit more about this later. I love that it's resonating with some people already. Number four is you live within your value system in what you do. So what you do aligns with the impact you want to make and who you are as a person at your core. So with these four circles, if you imagine it being a Venn diagram, if you can live right in the middle in that little sweet spot, then you're going to live a life where you are just fulfilled and you feel like you're destined for that specific craft.
Yeah, that's powerful. I suppose also, kind of on that, and in terms of like finding like the passion element, the thing that you're passionate about. I don't know if you would agree with this. Is that I think you kind of have people who, it's kind of like evident that what they're passionate about and kind of what they, also what they're good at. So I'll give an example.
Yeah.
I follow this awesome artist on Twitter, right? And you just know. I mean, I obviously don't know her story, so there might be like more to it. But kind of from the outside, you just amazing at it, passionate about it because talks about it and everything. And then I think kind of you also have those that maybe it's not so kind of evident, and both is
Mm-hmm.
fine. Both is fine. I think for those that maybe it's not so evident to, for me, I recommend like going out there and then trying a bunch of different things to then find like what that like passion is ultimately. So I don't know if you
Yes.
would go along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, whoops. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, so I totally agree. I feel like, so just to your point, there are certain people where when they start off, they immediately know exactly what they love and they don't even have to have a self-discovery journey. It's really easy for them. And props to them. Sometimes life isn't fair, right? But there are those who have to go through a longer journey for them to really understand what is it they want to do. And for those that have to go through that longer journey, I definitely have a few questions that you can use to figure out what that is. But I'd love to take a second to break down, some of those four aspects, if you don't mind, Luke.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess to start off, in terms of loving what you do, I think it's one of those half truths. Now, I feel like we've all heard the saying that if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life, right? And it's one of those half truths where, to a degree, it definitely makes sense, but there are other aspects. So I'll first start off by talking a bit about why it's so important to love what you do. So there's a story about three men. So if you imagine three men that are kind of lined up, they're working on a construction project. And each of these three guys are laying bricks. So this man walks by and asks the first man, "What are you currently doing?" The first man responds, "I'm just laying bricks." Then he asks the second man, "What are you currently doing?" The second man turns around and responds, "I'm making $1.50 an hour." Then he asks the third man, "What are you currently doing?" The third man turns around and with this gleam in his eyes says, "I'm building the world's greatest cathedral." And I feel like that story really shows and illustrates people that love what they do. They have a passion for what they do. And you can just see it in their optimism. You can see it in their passion, and you can see it in their eyes. And if you love what you do, it kind of creates this cycle where you end up having everything else you want, right? So if you love what you do, if you think about it, you then put more hours. If you put more hours into what you do, you get better at what you do. If you get better at what you do, you get the rewards from getting better. And then if you get better, you end up loving what you do even more. Mm-hmm. So it kind of creates this full circle round. And it's this beautiful cycle where it just gives you this advantage and this edge compared to people that kind of dread their vocation, right? In terms of, I know I mentioned it's kind of a half-truth, and why I believe it's somewhat of a half-truth is you can't quite just take loving what you do as the sole characteristic. And that's what a lot of people will do as a mistake. A lot of millennials especially. I mentioned the 4 different circles. A lot of people just take that one. And if you have all 4, that's where you have the sweet spot. Why you can't just love what you do. I'll kind of share a quick story on this. So in the past, when I was in elementary school, I played this one video game that I absolutely loved. Some of you guys will relate to this. It was a video game called Super Smash Bros. I don't know if you ever played, Luke.
Yes.
Awesome. So there was this underground community, and I would play sometimes for 16 hours straight. Wow. Absolutely loved it. Guys, I can tell you there would be nothing else I want to do more than to have Donkey Kong and Mario as my coworkers. But if I looked at some of the people in that underground community who did it full time, these people would be playing video games for 14, 16 hours straight every single day. And it came with this lifestyle. And when I really evaluated what I wanted in life, I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to have a family life. I wanted a lot more than what that specific niche could give me at the time. And by the way, guys, just to preface, I'm not saying that you can't be a gamer and there's not a right path to being a gamer. In fact, later on, I'll talk a bit about how you can really choose any path you want and kind of craft that into fitting within the 4 circles. Yeah. But that's just kind of an illustration to tell you that you can't just have one part of the circle. You need all 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's powerful. And so do you think it's then a mixture of leading with or kind of starting with what you're passionate about? But also, obviously, we spoke about it within the podcast, also starting with like the why as well. So do you think it's like a mixture of kind of finding out like what your purpose is and kind of like why, like the why? Because I know you're a big Simon Sinek fan.
Yes.
Got his book here.
Love it.
And so awesome book, guys. And so I'm just kind of interested in that, like where do people, with those 4 kind of different corners, do you think it's like starting with the why and the passion and kind of all of those kind of things, and then building it around into the 4 different areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan as well. I feel like more people are Simon Sinek fans as well in the audience. I actually have it in the back of my bookshelf. You probably can't see it. Okay. Maybe I'll show you guys later. But so to answer your question, I feel like your why kind of falls within the 4th category, which is within your value system. And I'll talk a bit about that in a bit. For those of you who are kind of in the boat where I was, where you feel like, man, I just don't really know what I love. I'm having a hard time pinpointing down what it is that I can do for endless hours and not get tired of it. I have a couple good questions here that can help you to identify it. I think the best way is really just to even sit down and just be conscious throughout your life with reflection and with thought to really think about what you're good at and what you love. And here are a couple questions that can help you get there. So one good question is, what can you do for long periods of time without getting sick of it? Right, that's a common one. What energizes you? That would drain most people. Right, like for myself, one of the things that I love doing, I'm in digital marketing, and there are certain aspects of analytics and automation that I just resonate with, and I could do for hours, whereas some of my content creators just kind of scoff at that and hate that. What do you do when time flies? right? So if you think about time flying. And by the way, real Donald Davy, that's a great, awesome question. So he says, how about personality? How would you incorporate that in the 4 circles? So I would say that actually falls into the second circle, which is figuring out what you're good at. And I'll kind of talk a bit about that, as well as some good personality tests involved as well, like the Myers-Briggs and the 4 personalities. Yeah. Some other good questions for loving what you do. So here's a good one is, what do you talk endlessly about that other people would just get sick of and be bored of? So if you've ever like talked to someone and you're passionate about the subject, and then the person looks at you with like just these dead eyes, then you know that it's a sign that you love it and someone else doesn't. Here's an interesting one is there something that you kind of like, you half like, but you can go deeper within that niche to where you love, right? So going back to my digital marketing example, digital marketing is this huge world, but within digital marketing, there are certain aspects that I hate and certain aspects that I absolutely love. So is there maybe a niche that matches with your personality, like real Donald Davy was saying, or matches with who you are that you love?
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, did you want to talk through, so obviously we spoke a bit at the time on kind of passion and everything. I suppose the only thing that I would kind of echo on that is to try different things to find out like what you are passionate about. So and with other things that you do enjoy as well. So like I would have no idea I enjoy podcasting, and also can learn so much from that if I didn't try it.
Right. Yeah, and just to you're absolutely right. And just to add on that a little bit, I think it's fine balance. So you definitely want to do some experimentation, like Luke's talking about. So trying different things is a great way to figure out what you love. But at the same time, you want to keep in mind that there are so many people that kind of take the shotgun approach when it comes to figuring out what they want to do in life. So what I mean by that is they take a shot at pretty much everything. I have this one friend who literally went through, I think, 6 different departments in university, and his parents were pretty rich, so he spent like thousands of dollars just trying out different departments, figuring out what he wanted to do. And I think there's some merit in that, but I think what you also need to do is take somewhat of a sniper approach, as in you kind of set a scope into what you're looking for before you take your shot.
But even on that, I think like we all have things like we're interested in, you know, like, so we might not have things that we kind of really identify that we're really, really passionate about, but I do think we have things like we're either curious about or interested in. Like I have no real curiosity or interest in golf, right? So you know what I'm saying? So like, there's no way you can see me doing anything to do with golf, right? Sorry, golf fans, right? Just an example that came to mind. But there are things I am interested in, and there are things that I am curious about, right? So obviously, I mean, football's a huge passion of mine, and if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably do something around that. But I do think like just like start from those interests, like you're saying, and then again, I would say also to be open-minded, kind of like I was with like the podcasting and with different things that can then help you to kind of grow and develop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And just adding on that, I think just like you mentioned, kind of experimenting within what you already have some interest in. Another very helpful tool that I used for a long time was, if I'm interested in something, I would go ask the people who are 5-10 years down in that industry what their thoughts are. So for example, in your case, if you're interested in football, right, maybe you can find a soccer player that's playing at the college or even professional level, and just ask them what the lifestyle's like, what the pay is even like. You can ask for tact, and just kind of figure out through informational interviews what the life is really like. For example, since I play soccer as well, I do have a couple friends who do play at the professional level, and it's a tough life. There's definitely a lot that comes with it that I wouldn't have thought of, but by asking, you then can help navigate for yourself. You'll figure out things about that industry that you never would have thought. Like for example, with my friend, he couldn't find work playing here in North America. So his only option was to go to China to play full time. And he had to play in the heat and the sun all the time. And it's just like one thing that you don't really think about in different industries, whether you have to travel, whether you have to do this or that. By asking people 5-10 years down the road, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, I also think we live in an age where we've got the technology to also just try like different things. You know, so like it's super easy, obviously, like you've done and I've done, to start that podcast or to start that blog, and also like to start documenting kind of your journey as well, which is something that I'm kind of keen for people to do as well. Moving on to kind of the second and the third part of the the bigger picture. So personality comes into the second part.
Yes, absolutely. And man, the second part is so crucial. And this is why I mentioned that it's not enough to just love what you do. You have to have the second circle as well. And, the best example I can give to that is, how many of us here watch American Idol or Canadian Idol? If you do, maybe give a thumbs up in the chat.
I do.
That's all good. You would think that since you're English, you'd be, one of the judges. Just kidding. But if you ever seen the auditions with American Idol or Canadian Idol, man, there's some people that are so bad at singing. And if you interview them, they love singing. They just have this passion for singing. But they start singing and it's like a donkey drowning, right? And, I'm coming from a place where you do not want to hear me sing in any sense of the word. X Factor as well. If I sing, you guys will all leave this chat immediately, and I'm pretty sure you unsubscribe like that. And, you see these people on American Idol, and as much as they love singing, it's not necessarily something they're good at. And I can tell
Joel,
you guys.
Joel, I'm just going to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I kind of in a way know like the kind of path we're going down. So I want to jump into to kind of say, where do you stand then on like the growth mindset of like our kind of strengths and weaknesses aren't fixed, like we can grow and develop in something. I do think we have maybe natural tendencies because, we're all different and we're all kind of good and not good at different things. But do you kind of on that, do you think that people can improve at things? And because I think it's a very fine line,
Yes. Yeah. I'm so glad you asked that. And it is definitely a very fine line. There's an interesting balance to it. And there's almost a sense of you have to use your discernment and sensibility on a case-by-case scenario to think about whether you have that potential. And I'm going to use that word potential because I think that really is the difference, right? So I'll give you a couple examples that kind of illustrate what you're talking about. So if you think about people like Michael Jordan, for example, a lot of us have been watching The Last Dance. That's on Netflix at the moment. Okay. And Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. And, God forbid if you went back in time and you imagine Michael Jordan never becoming a basketball player because he wasn't necessarily good at that time, right? But I think where the difference is between somebody who's not good and somebody with potential is that if you think about someone like Michael Jordan, he eventually grew to be 6'6", right? He constantly got affirmations all throughout parts of high school and all throughout college that he had potential. And on top of that, he got affirmations from people that were good at the sport or who were coaches, right? So people saw potential in him that were in that field, right? So I think that's a big indication. For something like singing, for example, you saw someone like Bob Dylan, who doesn't necessarily have the most gorgeous voice. It's very unconventional, but he was still able to become a singer. But he kind of carried a different aspect, a different strength that allowed him to come forward and be amazing and be exceptional at what he did. So I think that there's a bit of kind of evaluating your situation, asking the right questions. Here's kind of an example. I had this one friend and, kind of God bless her heart, but we were in Vancouver at the time and she told me that she wanted to become the coach of the Vancouver Canucks. And that was her dream. She loved that. But she's never played a game of hockey in her entire life, right? And it was kind of, I didn't want to be the bad guy, but it was kind of tough breaking to her that, unless you kind of make the effort to learn how to play hockey, to go through a lot of coaching schools, and you kind of take the right steps, and you have to see potential along the way, you're probably not going to become the coach of Vancouver Canucks. You might want to make a shift.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one, but you kind of got to find that balance.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like that self-awareness, like you say, and also, it's probably evident with my content. Like I'm a huge Gary Vee fan, and so some of the things that he talks about as well is, in a way, it depends what your goal is. Like, what's your North Star per se? Because like, if you want to become the next, I don't know, big singing superstar, then you're going to have to be quite good. But you could also be a singer, maybe not be as good, make less money, but you're still super happy. You know what I'm saying? So I do think it depends on what your North Star is and what the ultimate goal is that you want to achieve. And I still think you can still then do something that you love, maybe not be as good as kind of, the top, but ultimately still be happy and fulfilled, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. And I think one thing you mentioned as well is, how do you determine whether you can improve in that area? And I think one thing we got to keep in mind is, in each vocation or each industry, it is a big world, right? We kind of think of each vocation or industry as a small world. So I gave that example of singing, and there are people that are huge in singing that might not be as amazing live as some other people. So I've seen John Legend live at concert, and he was like exceptional, out of this world, just as good, if not better, than his albums. But I've heard that, I've never been to Katy Perry's concerts, but some people have said that she's not as good live. Not that she's bad, but she's not as good live. But she kind of brings a different strength, which is the strength of entertainment to her craft. So there's definitely this idea of being able to work within this big world and finding something you're good at that's not necessarily the traditional strength that you would think you would have. Another example is, for me, I want to be a content creator, but I had to evaluate what type of content creator I would be. I know some people that are hilarious, just make you laugh all day long through the content. I wish I was that charismatic. I'm really not. But one thing I do feel like is a little bit more of my strength, maybe, is that I do love observation, and I like kind of the tactical side of content. Okay. So kind of thinking through that aspect is able to allow me to learn and regurgitate information in kind of an education style. That works better for me.
Makes sense, man. And so did you want to move on to like the third kind of tier and section?
Yeah.
So just really quick on the second one. Obviously, we had the comment in about your personality. So obviously, there's some great tests out there. The Breyers, what's it called?
Yes, Myers-Briggs.
That's it. Test, which is awesome. So guys, just go and type it into Google. It's really awesome. Is there any other ways people can kind of learn more about their personality, and before we move on to section 3?
Big time. And I'll go through this quickly for the sake of time for everyone. So the Strength Finders test, the Clifton Strength Finders test, if you guys have a chance to take that, absolutely amazing. It goes through 34 different strengths. As you read through the book or you take the test, you're bound to find something that resonates with you. Some good questions you can ask. One more personality test you can take, the personality tree. So this one's kind of rooted from philosophers like Socrates, for example, where these are kind of from very far back, where they discovered that there are 4 big personalities across the human race. Some other good questions: what do my close friends and family say that I'm good at? Is my intuition stronger in that field than most? Is it an easier learning curve for me than most in that field? I think those are all great questions.
Yeah, for sure. And so moving on to the third part. Talk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the third one, as I mentioned, the third part of the 4 circles is being able to generate a return on what you do. Now this one, as I say it initially, it sounds a bit controversial because you don't want to be doing things just for kind of the external gain. But let me explain for a second.
We have to live.
So, yeah, we have to live. Yeah. So to be very clear, when I say return, I don't just mean money.
Right.
All right. I actually believe there are 4 different resources that are relevant to your life when I say return. So the 4 resources are, number 1 is actually money. So what monetary gains do you need to satisfy the lifestyle that you want? Number 2 is time. So what kind of time do you need? As an example, if you want to work as a doctor, right? I know some doctor friends that make a lot of money, but at the end of the day, they have to work 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And it's tough for them. They have to send their family on trips. And believe me, don't get me wrong, I respect them so much. It's incredibly noble profession, especially at a time like this. But, considering time as a resource. Number 3 is energy, right? Energy is different from time because if you've ever watched Netflix for like 4 or 5 hours straight, you know that sometimes you feel even more tired after you watch Netflix than you started. Yeah. So the energy that you have is very important, that you're granted from work. And the last resource is your network as a whole, your relationships. Yeah.
That's huge. So we got a comment coming in from Laurie at the Teen Travel Blog, who said, just what I mentioned, that very inspiring and motivating. That's what we like to hear. So thanks, Joel, Laurie. Man, you're doing an awesome job.
Appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, with that third section, a lot of people, I suppose like I did, just go straight to like the money, like when you hear that, but like you say, it's so much more than that. So much more than that. And I think for me, the network is so important. I'm a huge believer in just like your environment and how important that is. And the people, your people you surround yourself with, because it's just like so important. I could spend like another hour talking about that, but anyway, so like you say, it's not just the money. So what can people do in that section? Because I think one of the challenges that I found within Grow Together is when I first started it is like, okay, how am I going to monetize this ultimately? Because like I said, like we have to live. I do want to build an actual business, obviously serve and help people, but like there are a few different ways that people can monetize it, and I did not want to be branded as a coach or anything. So yeah, what kind of things can people do here?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. That's huge. So what I recommend is to start with the end. I know there's that kind of cliche book from The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey that talks about beginning with the end in mind. And that's really my biggest recommendation, is to really make it clear specifically what you want to see in your lifestyle design. And here's what I mean. So even within money, like what you mentioned, Luke, you talked about how when you started Grow Together, that was an area where you wanted to kind of figure out how to move about that. Even within money as a whole, there's different types of money. There's different ways you can go about it. For example, if you're more of a content creator where you create courses and you sell courses online, it's more of a passive income. If you create more evergreen courses, it's passive income for a more sustainable period of time. If you're choosing to be a life coach, it might be more active income for a period of time, right? Where you're working with people one-on-one, it's more of a service-based industry. Some aspects of even the money resource you can think about. A lot of people don't consider this, but consider what kind of family life you want down the road. If you want to have 3 kids down the road, you have to kind of strategize financially, because the average kid from 0 to 18 costs $250,000. Apparently that's a stat. And if you want 3 kids, for example, which is what me and my girlfriend want, we need, $750,000 just to be able to sustain the 3 kids, let alone what we want to do in our lives. And a lot of people don't kind of realize that that's something you have to factor in your life. You talked about earlier on, I kind of jumped to the 4th and work backwards. You talked about the different people you meet and your network, right? What I love about you, Luke, is that you are this amazing, I don't know if I should use the word networker, but you just connect with people really well. And I feel like you have this network of people that are just like authentic, that are all about growth. And it's amazing. Like people should look at your network and your relationships and be like, man, I want to be like Luke. Right. Whereas, yeah, in contrast, for me, when I was working in sales, this was a couple years back, I'm not putting down these people at all. Please don't get me wrong. They had a lot of amazing qualities. But there was a period where I'm telling you guys, the people I would hang out with in sales, half, if not more, did cocaine, right? And for those that just joined and heard me say the word cocaine, that's pretty awkward with no context. But that's kind of their lifestyle. They were big partiers, right? Hey, Kaylin. And because that was their lifestyle, if I kind of went down that path, that was the network and the people I would associate with. And there's that saying that you become the top 5 people that you associate with, an amalgamation of all top 5. And there's some truth to that. So you kind of got to think of the birds that flock together in your industry. For me, being in tech, there are people that are a bit more kind of lively, open to new ideas, whereas traditional businesses, maybe that's not the case, right? Depends on the industry. Kind of go into the other two. I'll kind of speed these two up a bit. I talked about time as a big one. I gave that example before on if you want to be a doctor, right? Maybe there are different types of doctors that you want to be. If you become a surgeon and you're on call, you might have a lot more time than being a family doctor, right? So you kind of got to think that through. And energy. Energy is an interesting one. For you, Luke, I feel like you're very energized by doing these kind of podcasts and meeting new people that resonate with you. So you found a medium that generates a lot of energy for you. Whereas when I worked in sales in the past, after that day, I'd be beat emotionally, physically, and mentally drained. Whereas what I'm doing now, I just love it. I can do this 20 hours a day, even, and it's no big deal for me. So just to kind of sum that up, begin with the end in mind, really make that specific and clear. And the more clarity you have, the more you're able to kind of work that backwards on the type of return/resources you need.
Yeah, for sure. And so I suppose what comes to mind there is a bit that we're going to talk about next is also in terms of like the why. So, but before we do that, do you want to answer Caitlin's question? Do you support the energy management technique? If I'm honest, I've never heard of it, but I'm going to Google that as soon as we're off.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I feel like I've came across that concept before, but just in case I'm not really answering the right question here, then I do apologize. But from what I understand, the energy management technique is the idea that humans only have so much willpower, and it's kind of like a battery, and you have to manage your energy throughout the day. You want to strategically use different parts of the battery on the most important parts of the day. I think there's definitely merit to the energy management technique. Essentially, I heard that your motivation as a whole, Jim Quick talks about this, your motivation is your purpose times your energy times small little action steps. So if you're thinking about something you want to do consistently for that energy resource, the more you have a strong purpose, for example, doctors right now with COVID, they're saving lives, right? So even though they're working, so Kaylin says, energy management is the proactive, organized, and systematic coordination of procurement, conversion, distribution, and use of energy. Wow, that's very eloquent. Perfect. So just kind of going back to what I was saying there. If you're, a doctor during the COVID time, you have that purpose. You're saving lives. If you're conserving your energy, using it wisely, and you're taking small steps, that kind of acts up to you having that full circle of motivation, and you're able to accomplish more. And that's kind of my personal opinion on that.
Okay, awesome. So Mike says, how are you doing today? So I'm doing well, Mike. Thank you for asking. So yeah, let's dive into like the fourth quarter. And I was just going to say, in terms of, so I like to look at things a little bit, deeper, not just surface level. And I suppose this is where like the why and everything comes in. But even on things like money and, things like that, like why do people kind of want that? Like it might sound weird, but like they want it to, I'll rephrase that. So So we're also kind of talking about like picturing the lifestyle and kind of everything and working from the end backwards. So people might go, if they're doing a dream board or whatever people do these
Yeah.
days, right? They put up like this car. It's like, well, why do you want that car? Well, you want that because it's going to make you feel a certain way, etc.,
Mhm.
etc. So I always look at things like deeper in terms of the why. And
Right.
so is that where everything comes in under the fourth kind of pillar, alongside values and principles in that?
Yeah, man, that's a great question, and this is where my Simon Sinek fans will resonate. So, oh man, this is such an important topic, and guys, really, I personally believe this is the most important of the four. Right? There's that quote. I think it's by Friedrich Nietzsche, where he says that if you have a strong why, you can get through any how. And I truly believe that to the core of my being. Where if you do think about it, there are some people in history that are really in their destined path that actually have just strictly that. So here's an example. If you think of Martin Luther King, right? This is a very extreme example. If you look at actually what he did throughout his life, he was a pastor at first. That was his vocation. But eventually he led the civil rights movement. And throughout that process, if you read his bio, he got stabbed. His house got bombed. Luckily, his family and kids weren't there. He constantly got berated. And at the end of his life, he actually got shot. And if you imagine seeing that on a job description on Glassdoor, you'd be like, no thanks, right? But ultimately, he was living his why. And by doing that, living his why, he was able to live the ultimate destined path for him. At least that's what I think he would say. And it's so absolutely crucial. Guys, the worst thing you can fall into is there's that saying that you can climb the ladder of success, but you'll find out it's on the wrong building. And I would never hope that on even my worst enemy. And finding out your why first, really thinking about, let's say you want to become a doctor. Are you wanting to become a doctor because you're interested and you love what you do, being a doctor? Or do you want to be a doctor to save lives, right? If you're being an engineer, do you just like kind of tinkering with the aspects of engineering? Or do you want to engineer change in the world? If you want to, that's a great quote. Thank you, WagePoint. That's my work. I represent. And if you want to be, let's say, a financial planner, are you being a financial planner because you love numbers? Or are you being a financial planner because you want to inspire financial literacy in the world? So I think there are layers that you can kind of ask in reflection and in thought that allow you to find a deeper meaning of what you're looking for.
Amazing. That's awesome. And so we also mentioned like the point in the middle, the sweet spot. So I don't know if you have any kind of thoughts on that sweet spot that kind of make the four pillars up.
Yeah, I definitely do. So just before I jump into that, I'll give you guys a couple quick questions on finding your why or your values, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So a couple quick questions here. What words would I like people to use when they describe me when I'm out of the room? I think that one's really key. So when I'm not there, how do you want people to describe you? It kind of represents how you act from a day to day. How would I want someone to feel about me when I mention my name? So these two questions are very identity based. So what are the traits that other people have that I respect, that I want to embody? Who are my role models in life and what characteristics make them who they are? And the last one is very difference, kind of impact based. So what sort of impact would you like to leave in the world if you were to die tomorrow? That's a very classic one that everyone's heard before.
Yeah. But powerful, And I also think like reading the Start With Why, by Simon, it kind of made me realize like to go back over like my values and principles and beliefs in that, and kind of asking myself, well, what are the things that I believe in, and then like why do I believe in this, and kind of always trying to look like deeper to, I suppose, like connect with more of like my deeper self in that. So that's been really beneficial to me ultimately as well. So sweet spot, let's dive into that.
Yes. So I feel like at the end of the day, the amalgamation of all four of those spots. So you love what you do, you're good at what you do, you can generate a return on what you do, and you live within your value system. my big advice for you, this is kind of how I found it. So this is hopefully practical for you guys. What I did was I wrote down some of the vocations that I was thinking of that checked one, two, three, or four of those boxes. I'm a very organized guy. I had this Excel sheet with conditional formatting, all that jazz. And I kind of gave myself a point system on what aspects of these vocations checked off these boxes. But one thing to keep in mind is just because you have a vocation that falls within one, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not the right path for you. So for example, I mentioned that for me in digital marketing, there are aspects of digital marketing that I'm not good at, right? I'm not actually great with social media. So you might think, okay, it doesn't check off one of the points. But once I found within that niche something that I was good at and something that I love doing, and I was able to do on countless times on end and I was good at, then I was able to check that box. So once you have a chance to kind of lay that out, whether written down or on an Excel sheet, really think about how you can tweak and adjust these different aspects to match what you're looking for. Another good example is, let's say you go into sales, for example, right? You're thinking sales checks a lot of my boxes, but it doesn't quite check my values box. Maybe it's about finding the right organization, right? There are some organizations that do sales in a very kind of sleazy way. You think about a slick back hair and it's greasy, but there are some organizations that are upright and integral in how they approach sales. So there are definitely ways where you can find a vocation that matches different aspects of the circle, but you can really ask yourself how you can adjust to make it work for you. I know for the return section, I talked about gaming earlier on, right? If you want to be a gamer, there's a difference between being a professional gamer than being a YouTuber and Twitch streamer. A professional gamer is more about generating a lot of income really fast. You kind of get this pile of money when you go into these big events and tournaments. Whereas for a Twitch streamer, it's more of creating kind of more of a passive income, right? So the return you get is a little bit different. So that's really my suggestion is, as you think about these vocations, what are the little kind of minute details, the granular details that you can get into that help make small adjustments so that you can match all four of those circles?
Yeah, I love that. I love that, man. Guys, do you have any questions for either myself or for Joel? Do kind of put them in the comment section. We will answer them. Joel, do you have any kind of final thoughts or anything to add ultimately to kind of what we've been talking about?
I think that's pretty much it from my end, to be honest.
Awesome.
I think I'd run out of steam if I give any other thoughts. Nothing that comes to mind. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys like. But yeah. Do you have any thoughts that you wanted to add to anything I said?
I don't think so. And I've just realized that this must time out at 2 hours or so because I've got a remaining timer just come up on my end. I don't know if you've got that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll go 2 hours, but happy to answer any questions here.
No,
so
an hour. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know. So should we answer Caitlin's question?
Yes.
And before we do that, I would just say, so guys, Joel came on to the Grow Together podcast. It's episode 32. Just type into where you listen to your podcast, the Grow Together podcast. It'll come up. Episode 32, like I say, we dive more into Joel's story and journey, and that is a really awesome episode. So yeah, let's answer Caitlin's question before we run out of time here, and wrap up.
Caitlin, thanks for hopping back on. Thank you all you guys for hopping on again. This means so much from the bottom of my heart. Caitlin, to answer your question, any general advice I have for small business owners? I guess I give advice just in general direction as a whole because that's the topic of today. Guys, I can tell you for me, I actually owned a business prior to Model Millennials that I had incorporated and I was running for a period of time. And it was a freelancing business. So I started off being a digital marketing freelancer where I did a bunch of stuff. To be honest, way too much in marketing for me to really handle as a one-man show. And that was stressful for me because as a freelancer, I started off trying to do too much. Any business owner that came to me and said, I need help with my marketing, I would say yes. I would accept everything they did, from SEO to pay-per-click ads to social media, creating websites, and it just became kind of too messy for me. Whereas when I made the adjustment of really figuring out my niche within freelancing as an agency, and I kind of honed in on, again, what I mentioned before, what I'm good at and what I'm best with, my business really started feeling better as a whole because, A, I started going to the niche of what I loved, and I had repeatable and rinsable processes. And then second is I ended up taking clients that really resonated with me and I wanted to take. So I would say that if you do decide to start a business or you're running a small business now, really kind of, again, working backwards with the end in mind, what is that picture of your business that would satisfy you? What are the returns, especially as part of business, if you're thinking from that structure section, that would really make you happy if you had that business 5-10 years down the road. If you're thinking about, let's say, taking capital, raising capital from people and investments, then you might be giving a part of the purpose up, depending on the investor that you have, right? So maybe you want to keep it private. So I think that those are all important questions to consider. For me, for Model Millennials, my direction I want to take, I never want to raise investments for the business. I don't know if I can ever, but that's not something I want to do. I want to keep it private so I can keep that purpose over paychecks in mind to begin with. And I really have kind of that picture of where I want to go with it. There are definitely a lot more skills I need before I can get there. And that's a big part of the reason why I'm still working full time while running my business. And my goal is to get there in about 4 years, where I can learn all the skill sets, leadership wise and marketing wise.
Yeah, so just quickly on that, I remember when we were doing the podcast, that was something that came out. Is like, I just remember this bit where you were kind of talking about that, and I went straight into, like he's playing the long game. You know what I'm saying? And so I think when people dive into this entrepreneurial world, and I was guilty of it, you think like, and maybe it's like stigma from other people, and you feel like you have to start your business and then become a full-time as quickly as possible. And it's like, well, it's the journey, right? It's like, it's the process, and so I love that when you mentioned that, within the episode of the podcast, and obviously again now, because I think a lot of people like just don't see that, like, the long term.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more. And I feel like nowadays, just like you mentioned the word stigma, there's a stigma to being the next, for everyone wanting to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. Mm-hmm. Every millennial kind of has fallen into that trap of wanting to be a wantrepreneur, a wannabe entrepreneur. That was me in the past. I'm the first to admit. And I kind of wanted to be that founder. I wanted to raise investments. And I was so excited to be that picture of being the CEO of a unicorn, this billion-dollar company. But at the end of the day, I didn't really think about, will that fulfill me to my core? And there's this book called Small Giants. Tim Ferriss always recommends this book, where sometimes there's this great noble purpose to being a small private business, but one that's incredibly impressive, where you're a craftsman in what you do, but it's even a one-man show, or you only have a couple employees. So, man, there's lots to think about. I think at the end of the day, like I mentioned, thinking about your end result is really the key.
That's it. Well, guys, thank you for everyone who's joined myself and Joel today. Joel, I don't know if you want to mention kind of some of the things that we were thinking about in terms of when we were talking about doing this Instagram Live. We were also thinking about, a bigger kind of event to help people to really dive into this stuff and to really understand it. And so when we were discussing this, we were like, okay, let's do an Instagram Live first to see if this would be something that would resonate with people and people would want. So I don't know if you kind of want to talk about that, if we, the people that we've got on and people who will watch on replay, to see if this is something that they would want kind of even more, because I think, when we were talking, you were like, we could go like even more deep. I mean, we've been going for like over an hour now, but like we could go even more kind of deeper into it. So I don't know if you just want to mention a few words.
Yeah, I'll keep it short, guys. But first off, like, thank you everyone to the audience. It means so much from the bottom of my heart that you would take time out of your day to listen. It really means a lot. There's so much you could be doing, but the fact that you're here, just appreciate that. And first off, Luke, you are absolutely amazing. Love all your content. Love what you do. To answer a bit about what's next, we do have a podcast for the Model Millennial side where I did with Luke. That's coming out very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Luke killed it on the podcast. So much great advice. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And in terms of a big event, we were thinking of doing one where it's kind of a live event where we have multiple people like myself, like Luke, that would cover different topics that are related to really helping you out in navigating your life and becoming the best version of yourself. And, you know, kind of like these sessions, hopefully I can keep it within an hour. I'm so sorry for not doing so this time. But sessions like this, where it's an hour for you guys to really get a lot of value out of. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely let us know through feedback, or we'll keep you posted through following us on our channels.
Yeah, okay. So Laura says that I love that idea, so that's a good idea. So yeah, guys, if you think that's a good idea, comment below, DM me, DM Joel, you know, connect with us on social. We're very friendly guys, so our inboxes are always open. And I suppose like final thoughts for me would be, apart from, you know, that episode that Joel came onto the Grow Together podcast, to its episode 32, just remind everyone, episode 32, would be, you know, to go out there and to to go out there and to try different things to find that thing that you are passionate about, but remembering the other kind of areas, you know, and ultimately kind of when you think like you find something that you want to do, starting with that why of, okay, like, why am I doing this? You know, like, what's the purpose behind it? What's the mission behind it? What are my core values and beliefs in that? So those would be some of my final thoughts. But yeah, Joel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate that. And thanks to everybody.
No worries. So guys, again, if you think the event is a good idea, that me and Joel have kind of like come up with the idea, do let us know, just DM us. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week, and yeah, we'll see you across social media.
Stay safe out there.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.